jump from here to there. I wanted them to get there very gracefully, in a very pretty way. I just always wanted things to stay as pretty as possible. I figured, that's kind of what I like to see. I felt that mood and color were very important to certain songs. If there's like a nice slow ballad, I felt that the right colors really would enhance that, as opposed to using every color in every song, that kind of thing. So I always felt that like your blues and your greens and your dark purple always had like a nice soft sort of vibe to it, and then your reds and your oranges and your whites were when your big power rock would kind of start happening. So that's kind of how I approached it. It was really just more about being elegant. And that's kind of, even from day one up until today, that's always my #1 goal, is to just try to keep everything pretty and elegant. I mean, I know everyone knows who's seen Fish that there's plenty of pop-in-your-face stuff going on, but there's also plenty of elegance as well. At least that's what I'm trying to accomplish. So.
I believe part of your question was about the audience, right? That can totally, the same way it influences the band's playing sometimes. I mean, if it's a really energetic audience and people are freaking out, that might sort of egg me on to do more flashy, strobing or whatever, versus, and the band as well. The band, I'm really at the end of the day following the band. So if the band is, sort of raging and doing more of the, feeding off the energy from the crowd, I'm going to be feeding off of them, and it's like this whole vortex thing. So that influences a lot, and really, I mean, a lot of what I do is, same with you, is total improv. I mean, even, I know since the coming back from the hiatus, or the third hiatus, or whatever it was, you started to do more song cues, but prior to that, you never had that, right? You always do.
It's kind of improv within structure.
Right.
I mean, there are plenty of songs in the Fish where if you just improv all the time and try to stay with the song, you can make the changes on the downbeat and you can make things happen, but oftentimes, there's a vision that screams for more than that, you know what I mean? So we started going deeper into programming so that on very complicated songs, it's not just color changes or not just quick things happening, but more teeny little twinkles and elegant things happening right in the right place. Little like rolls of light. You see, when I have this thing I do, I call it a one-shot, where a roll of white light just kind of goes across the lighting rig. Things like that, where instead of just blue, red, that kind of thing, now we have just little things to kind of enhance those same moments in music, but they're more interesting to look at, and they're a little more vibey. And that's really the kind of programming we do lately, is just try to make simple things look, pretty, I guess.
Yeah, and I have a few songs. Mantis, when the band released that album, that was the first song I ever written specifically for a song with what we call a cue stack, where there's the same cues during the same sections of the song all the time. But a lot of the songs, verse, chorus, I'm just hitting, some variable of white and yellow, make this part look bright, make this part look cool, blues and purples, make this part hot, reds and yellows, but it's not always the same unless, like you said, it's a more complicated song and you want nuances. But as far as improv, the audience sort of always dictates how the band is going to play, I think, and then therefore what I'm going to do following the band.
And so let's break it into a little bit about the gear you're using, and about not just the gear you're using now, but about Chris, you could probably touch a lot about the gear you first started using when you were working with Fish, and the difference of using the gear now versus the work, the load that you'd have to put into the gear in the beginning, because it's a lot different now what this gear is able to do. So let's talk a little bit about the gear that you guys are using.
Well, I'm a lot more old school than Jeff. I started doing this in the late 80s, and literally, like I said before, the first light board in these little bars was about this big. Had like 6 little faders, and it was just, I don't know if anybody's familiar with what par cans are. They're just, most of the lights you see in a club, it's just like a can with a gel on it, and it just turns on and off. You know what I mean? That's about it. And when Fish was up and coming and getting more popular and more popular, we started to need, technology upgrades and that kind of thing. And when we first started, there were only 4 of us on the crew. There was a monitor guy, a sound guy, myself, and kind of a manager. And as we started getting bigger, I started noting that these guys weren't around anymore, because when the technology came, they couldn't handle the new technology. You needed it to grow, that kind of thing. So as I noticed my friends one by one start to disappear, I took it upon myself to attend some moving light programming courses and things like that, because I wanted to keep up with the technology so I wouldn't wind up having it outgrow me and not be capable to do the things that I needed to do. So I started going to Dallas, Texas and taking Varilight classes. I learned how to fix lights, I learned how to program lights, I learned the gambit just because I thought it was good knowledge to have, and I really wanted to keep up on what was going on because I liked what I did and I wanted to keep doing it. And you know, the lights that we use, the lights that you see behind us, and you know, these things are really cool. This thing's like flying the Enterprise when you stand in front of it, you know what I mean? Like, and I really wanted to know how to do that. I didn't want it to surpass me, so I made a personal effort on my own dime and on my own time to go and learn this stuff so that I could keep up with Fish and be able to provide what I knew we were going to need in the future. So that's what I did. And you know, these lighting consoles compared to what I started out with they're just amazing. They can literally do anything. This one in front of you, this is called a Grand MA. It's German light board. It's pretty much become an industry standard. And the nice thing about it is, just in the most simple way, you can take anything that you program or create or write and put it anywhere on the light board. So, can I move this? Ta-da.
Yeah.
How do you spell fish in the lights and the balls? I love that.
I'll tell you about that.
That's awesome.
Anyway, so let's see what we've got here. This is Jeff's show in here. So if I hold down this button, I'm strobing the lights, right? And it's a button over here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I can. There we go. I can say, copy this button to here, and now it's over here on this fader. Or is it? There it is. Right? So I can put a strobe or any cue I write, this example being a strobe, I could put it on a fader, I could put it on a button, I could put it on one of these little touchscreen tiles, I can put it wherever I want. So as a lighting designer, the great thing about using this desk is that everybody can lay it out however they're most comfortable. So if you're really comfortable pushing the buttons over here, then you'll put your stuff over here. If you're really comfortable putting stuff on faders, you'll put it over here. You may want color changes on faders, but strobe effects on a button over here. So you can literally put anything, anywhere, which is the beauty of this light board. So if I sat down with 50 lighting designers, all with Grand MAs, and we looked at all their pages and how they have it laid out, all 50 people would have it laid out completely different than the other guy, because you can literally fine-tune it to your way, the way you're most comfortable. That's one of the really great features about today's technology. You couldn't do that before. Old light boards, the faders did this, the buttons did that, and that's it. Get used to it. So, you know, just the versatility of this makes an incredibly powerful tool.
And the downside to that is, for someone like me, I've become so accustomed to this board, and I've been really spoiled that I've pretty much only used this board since day one, 8 or 9 years ago when I started with Mo, that when I go into a rare situation, which probably happens 2 or 3 times a year, but it happened in Fort Lauderdale just a couple days ago, and we're not traveling with our truck because we're getting on a boat, forced to use a venue, much lower end technology, to say the least. And I'm really, useless in that. I mean, I feel really out of place. I can still sort of, I know the music. That's the one thing I have going for me. But it's hard to adapt because this is really the top of the food chain, except for the Grand MA2, which Chris uses now. But anyway, to go back to what he was talking about, I started on park hands as well in bars, and then at Wetlands Preserve is where I learned to run moving lights. And I'm such a man of Chris. I'm such a fan of, I'm a man of habit. So literally the first, most primitive moving light console I ever used was the LCD controller. Do you know that one with the little joystick? I don't know if that's the brand name, just LCD.
Is that, are you talking about like Atari? Is that what you're talking about?
It sort of looks like it.
Yeah, okay.
But literally the way I had the buttons laid out was white, yellow, pink, blue, red. And you'd hit the button and it would go to that color. And I got so used to that my board is still laid out that way. If you were to see it now, it's those same 5 buttons, and that's just because I feel more comfortable having everything be the way it's always been. It's just muscle memory. And a lot of the way I run my show is I don't want to have to be thinking in the moment. I know it's something you hear musicians talk about a lot, is, you know, and you said that Trey called it no mind, right?
Yeah.
Not thinking, trying to block your ego out of the equation.
When Trey and I don't hook up, we kind of have this mental link. I know it makes no sense, but it's true. It's like unspoken. I know where he's going, he knows where I'm going, we follow each other a lot. When we don't hook up, I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie, The Last Samurai. It's a cheesy Tom Cruise movie. But there's a line in it when he's doing a sword fight and he can't get it right, and the guy walks up to him and goes, "Too many mind. Too many mind. No mind." And that's our philosophy. Trey and I have that philosophy. When we don't hook up, we meet up backstage and separate and go, "Too many mind. No mind. No mind." That's kind of how we think. There is no, when you're doing it, when I'm doing it, there's no thinking. You're just going. Like it's kind of like the music and the moment and the lights and everything kind of take control of me and them and everything, and it's all this one giant rolling ball. You know, it's not, I don't think to myself, I'm gonna do this next and I'm gonna do this after that. I just do what feels right at that second, and that's really it with Fish.
So in an effort to not think, I keep everything laid out as simple as possible, and I talk to a lot of more technical people, and they say, "Oh, why don't you can go to another page and put these buttons here." And I always just get a little bit intimidated, and I say, you know what, that's all well and good, and that may be technically correct, and it might be more, more efficient, thank you, to move around or whatever. But for me, it's too much to think about. Oh, what page am I going to? Where's my home page? And a band like Humphreys or Fish, the changes are just coming so quickly that if you even take half a second to think, am I going to page 6 or page 5? Like, the moment's already gone. So for me, it's just laying and this is just how I am. Again, everyone runs the board differently, but I like to keep it as simple as possible and literally run it the same way I ran it day one when I was taught how to use a moving lights console.
So you'd say a lot that it's this is your instrument. I mean, this is like, you're able to, just like someone's shredding a guitar, you're shredding the lights in a lot of ways.
The cool thing is, I'm sorry to interrupt. The cool thing is what we were saying before about this particular kind of technology and this light board. What Jeff said is exactly what this is all about. He grew up on a certain board a certain way and had this muscle memory on this certain other LCD console that he's talking about. So when he went to this is flexible enough that he could set this up the way his brain works, which is based off of that, and it works for him. It's laid out his way, the way his mind likes it, based on how he grew up. And for me, it's different based on how I grew up. And that's what's great about today's lighting consoles, is that you can set them up whatever way makes you the most comfortable. He does it his way, I do it my way, completely separate backgrounds. And that's one of the things that makes it so great.
And when we're talking about linking in with the musicians, I mean, you've got these musicians that are completely just, a lot of times you have a structured song, but they're improvising it all along at the same time. In this style of music that we're on Jam Cruise with. Can you, Chris, talk a little bit about Create Your Own Hay? And because if those of you who are familiar with Fish may have heard this story from the musician's perspective, but what's really neat about the lighting designers is that they are a member of the band. I mean, just as much as a guitar player or a keyboard player or a drummer is a member of the band, so is a lighting designer, and this is a great example of how that comes to play.
Create Your Own Hay is a listening and communicating exercise that Trey Anastasio came up with, and we would sit in, the band used to all live in the same house in Winooski, Vermont. This is like 1989. And we would all sit in the living room and all the instruments would be set up, and I'd set up some lights and have that little light board that I was telling you guys about. And the exercise was, and we did this for years, every day, hours and hours. The exercise was everybody would play one thing repetitively. So Trey would play one riff repetitively, John Fishman would play one drum thing repetitively, Paige, Mike, and I'd be doing something on the lights. And what you would do is you would focus in on what each individual was doing, not listening to it as a whole. I hear exactly what Trey is doing. I hear exactly what Fish is doing. I hear exactly what Mike's doing. They would see exactly what I was doing. And once everybody was able to tune in individually to each person, you'd say, "Hey," out loud. Once everybody said the word "hey," everybody then altered what they were doing slightly, just a little change. And then you re-listen to everybody, and when you tuned in, I changed something on the lights, you'd say "hey." And we'd go around for hours and hours, slight change, listen, 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 listen. Communicate by saying "hey," I hear you and you and you and you and you. You see me, "hey." Alter for hours and hours and days and days and weeks and weeks and years. And that exercise, I believe, in my heart, has a lot to do with how Fish works. Because on stage, when Fish is being Fish and they're doing their thing and jamming, they're listening to each other, they're communicating with each other. They're still doing that now, 20 whatever years later, individualizing each person and either following them or finding a new direction to go. There is no real leader that takes the jam somewhere else. They kind of lead each other by listening to each other. Fish has always been all about listening and communicating. So that exercise we did for years and years. And, I can't say for sure because, Fish is who Fish is, but I believe that the growth of Fish and the way Fish works has a lot to do with that exercise that we would do religiously in practice every single day. And that's create your own hay.
And Jeff, what about you? Do you talk a little bit about rehearsal? I mean, how much does a lighting designer participate in the rehearsal of the band?
Well, my situation with Humphreys is a lot different because I came in sort of, well, we don't know how long their total career is going to be, but at least halfway through. I wasn't there in the early days like Chris was with Fish, but so I don't know specifically. I know their story with the Jimmy Stewart jam. I'm sure most of you know this story, but it was an improvisational exercise that happened early on in their career, and now they still work it into the set list. So I wasn't around when they were actually forming the building blocks of their improvisational style, but currently a lot of the rehearsal goes on either backstage, the practice gear that we tour with, or on stage during sound check. And I'll generally, if it's a new song, I'll generally just sort of be back there doing what I'm doing, assuming the day has gone well enough where I have the luxury, because I have to get everything programmed for the show. So, but assuming we're at a good point, or if it's a multiple night run, New Year's Eve, for example, we had a 3-night run at the pageant, and the second and third nights, they were practicing a lot of covers, because we had a horn section sitting in. So I had the luxury of running the songs as they were learning them with the horn section. And I approach what I do very similar to a musician, so I had the benefit of hearing them, assign parts and going over it, and I was sort of learning it as they were learning it, and that's really a nice advantage.
Tell everyone also a little bit about that. Jeff mentioned that he came into the working with Humphreys McGee as they've already had a lighting designer for several years. Now, when you come into that situation, are you learning that not the programming, but are you picking up the design that the other lighting designer is doing because the band's familiar as part of their show, or are you coming up with a whole new clean slate?
I was definitely a clean slate. I actually had not seen that many Humphreys shows. I mean, I would see them once or twice a year when it was convenient. But like they would come to my town, or I'd be at a festival, and I always enjoyed them. But I was not intimately familiar with their song catalog or their lighting design. So when I started, my biggest challenge was trying to make it look different than Mo, because I established my style with Mo, and the first couple shows I did with Humphreys, I got some feedback from people saying, "Oh, this looks like a Mo show." And I had to sort of come up with a new way to to light, basically. And I got lucky because Martin came out with a brand new fixture almost within the same month that I got hired with Humphreys, and that's the Mac 3, which Fish also uses. And that made it really easy to have it look different because it was such a new fixture. And it's, you know, top of the line, so it's easy to come up with new ways. It was a clean slate, and also they released a new album, Mantis, so it was a lot of new material.
So you're sitting there listening to the new material, brainstorming. So that must have been a pretty creative and interesting time, just to be sitting in the house listening to new music and just being creative and having to create a whole new show and a whole new experience. Speaking of styles, just to let you guys know where we're going to go with this, we're going to open up some questions in a little bit. But I'd like for you both to talk a little bit about your styles, maybe even share some examples, and then Chris, would you mind even doing a sample with some music and explain that style?
Sure, my style is purple sneakers.
Yeah.
I know this sounds nuts, but I can't light fish without my purple sneakers. I kid you not. It's just a thing. I'm like that. So anyway,
That sounds like some Cash Elevator question that you're using.
It's good trivia.
the main thing about my style, the signature thing that I do, and you know, it just kind of just, I didn't like strive to do this. It just kind of developed as me as a person. Is oftentimes when I push the button, I'm sure you guys all know music 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. I don't push the button on 1. I push the button 5 seconds before 1 and have lights programmed with 5 seconds of time so that they do their thing and land on 1. I don't know how I learned how to do this. I don't know. It's just how I do it. So when you see a Fish show and you see the lights move and they just stop right on the downbeat, it's because I pushed the button 5 seconds ago and watch it play. And over the years, I've gotten pretty good at it.
Yeah.
So, would you say also that?
Thanks. I'm glad you all like that. I mean, I've never met another lighting designer, operator, whatever, who even remotely does it like that. It's just kind of my own thing. And like Jeff was saying before, the whole self-taught thing, being self-taught and just kind of approaching it my own way, that's just kind of how it happened for me. So when next time you guys see a Fish show, you'll see that happen and you'll go, that's what he was talking about.
Two little tidbits fact for you all. Chris, if you ever go to breakfast with him, he knows what you're going to order 5 seconds before you order. And he's also not allowed to play the lottery in the city of New York, or state of New York, excuse me, because, again, he knows the numbers 5 seconds before.
13, 23, 30.
I have an interesting story that I actually told. Sorry, Scotty B. I told the story last night, so I don't want to repeat myself. But for the rest of you, I went and saw the Australian Pink Floyd, and they're pretty big. They like sold out an arena in Boston, and they had this huge light rig, and I was really fascinated to see a really cool light show. They had a big budget, and they played "Shine On You Crazy Diamond," and the lighting designer, no offense to him, he did an amazing job, but just that one line where they say "Shine On" at the chorus, he was clearly hitting the button on the downbeat, and it was a 2 or 3 second fade, and it's a really dramatic moment. I don't know if most of you were probably there last night when Humphreys did it, but he was hitting the button on the downbeat, which is innate in us. You know, we're all used to growing up dancing, and everything's on the 1. You clap your hands on the 1, pump your fist, so it's really hard to do what Chris does and hit it early. But I noticed it because I had just been watching the DVD, the Pink Floyd Pulse, with that ridiculous light rig, and Mark Rickman, their LOD. You know, it's just such a master, and it's such an iconic song, and the visual aspect to me is part of the whole thing. And it goes from purple, and it slowly goes up to white, and it hits you in the eyes just as they're saying "Shine On," and it's so vital to the song. And it was happening 2 or 3 seconds late every time in the chorus, and it was driving me nuts. I mean, I'm in a venue with 10,000 people, and everyone's freaking out. And I'm like, no, it's wrong. I mean, I didn't tell anyone this, but this is what goes on in my head. And I came home that night, and I opened up an email. This is when I worked for Mo, and there was an email saying, by the way, we're going to cover Wish You Were Here on New Year's Eve at Radio City. It's the first time we did Radio City, which also has the same shape as the Pink Floyd light rig with the dome. And that just blew my mind, the serendipity of that. So I went and I learned the whole album, and I was so excited that I had this opportunity to light shine on the way I thought it should be lit. And then Mo didn't wind up learning the album in time, so we scrapped it. And then I got the job with Humphreys years later, and I was very excited that I could finally light it. And but yeah, hitting it early it's counterintuitive.
I want to show you guys how. Just to give you an example. So, somebody asked Jeff a question. I'm just going to make something really simple up there, and hopefully, with a little luck, on Jeff's Humphreys show, I can give you a visual example of what I was talking about. So, somebody asked Jeff a question about his childhood or something.
All right, Amos,
Don't
grab the
mention my
microphone
uncle.
here. If anyone wants to ask a question, the lovely Amy Eccles will be happy to put the microphone in your face.
Who picks the person?
I don't know.
You should pick. I don't know.
All right, who wants to have, there we go, the guy in the blue hat. And it's on.
I like your shirt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or is that an apron?
I've been working out all year. So I'm a big fan of both of your bands, but I was just curious if you could give us a specific example of when the band is playing the crowd, and then the crowd gives the energy back, and then the lights are doing something. I just think it's interesting that both of your bands, we aren't always looking exactly at Trey or Brendan or whoever is singing. Sometimes we can't even see the bands, and just some inspiration. Like, give us a specific example of when you kind of got that. And then just a comment. I saw a UFO land at Big Cypress, and I was wondering if Chris could confirm or deny that.
So specifically, other than the UFO, you wanted to know about the crowd interaction? I'm trying to think of a good example specifically. One of the things that I sort of feel uncomfortable with is that, and I'm sure Chris has noticed this too, sometimes with the whole tension and release thing, there, inevitably there's strobing and then there's a release. And you may be in red and you're strobing and the band's building and you have to try to anticipate when they're gonna release. Sometimes I'll screw up and I'll think they're gonna release and they don't release, or vice versa.
A premature release, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Mom. So I feel really uncomfortable when I screw up and the crowd reacts because it's sort of like Pavlovian. Did I blow that word? I was trying to use like a shrink word. Yeah, like Pavlov's dogs or whatever. Like people are conditioned when the lights go white to put their hands up and cheer, and if I screw up and I mistime that, it's all just, a lot of it's luck. You just have to sort of guess. And the crowd cheers. I feel like I didn't earn that. I fucked it up and everyone's cheering and I sort of roll my eyes. So that's an example of when something goes wrong. But when everything goes right, there's no better feeling in the world other than the premature release.
And as you guys are seeing on the screens, you can probably get a decent shot of what's going on with Chris' hands. But this is actually interesting because Chris is on board and lighting a lot of bands he's maybe familiar with a little bit, maybe never seen before, but also using another board, here at that's programmed, another person's program. He's actually programming all this stuff right in front of you all. So it's kind of a neat thing. It's a neat experience, and it's for the LDs to have to do, but it's also challenges. What are some of the challenges when you get called up to a gig like this?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. I was paying attention to him. Chopper, can you kill these, whatever they are up there, just give me the 700s only?
Just the experience. Like you're using a board now that's another person's program, and to be able to not just using that, but using someone else's program, but also working with all these different bands that maybe you've never heard of. But, working at a festival, if you end up doing other bands that are performing, they have different hits and pauses and all this sort of stuff that you're not familiar with. How do you adjust to that?
That's an interesting question in the sense that. Thank you. Is that? Can you guys still see me and everything? Is that cool? Okay. Well, when you're in a festival situation, there's a lot of bands like this awesome cruise that we're on. They all have their own lighting people. Everybody does stuff differently. You know what I mean? With what I was saying before about the way I do it, pretty uniquely compared to most people. The first time I ever programmed a light board that was for lots of people to use, lots of bands playing, I did it my way because I didn't know how to do it any other way. And all the lighting guys would come in and look at it and go, what is this? I can't, it doesn't work for me. So it took a lot of trial and error to be able to write light shows that everybody can use. You keep it very simple. Basically, simplicity is the key. So you make it, you change your colors here, you move your lights here, you put your patterns in here, you have sweeps here, and you lay it out very simply so that anybody comes in, it's not going to be their light show, but they're going to be able to accomplish what they want to accomplish. When you walk into a festival situation like this, like let's say, for example, if Fish was playing on the pool deck, I would never be able to do Fish's light show like you're used to seeing on the pool deck because I'd be walking into somebody else's, it's what we call a punt page. You're walking up to somebody else's punt page and having to make it work without any program time. You walk in, you play, you leave, the next band walks in, plays, leaves. You know, obviously, I think it goes unspoken that programming Fish is thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. So when you just walk in, you need something simple where you can still enhance the music the way you want to. It's not going to be what you're used to, but you can accomplish your goal. So in that respect, simplicity is the key. And you know, that took me a while to learn because when I first got my first job hosting a festival in Lighting World, like I said, I set it up my way and everybody was just really, really confused. It took me a while to be able to learn how to provide a generic setup that anybody could use.
So speaking of simple, we'll do something that's simple in a minute. But let's take another question from the crowd here.
Hi guys, I just want to talk about you know, if there's a new song, like we'll give examples for Humphreys puppet strings and for Fish steam. Does the lighting design change from the first time they play it to the second time to the third time? How much for those specific songs, as an example, does the lighting design change from one version to the next?
It depends on the song. Sometimes if a song's pretty simple in structure, if it's, you know, verse, chorus, guitar solo, bridge, chorus, I might do it differently every time. Again, I said it earlier, it might be, you know, whites and yellows for the chorus and reds for the guitar solo and blues at the little pretty section at the end. And it might vary, but if it's a song that has some quirks, Puppet String I think is sort of standard. I mean, it's a great song, but there's not a lot of odd time signatures or things that sort of would catch you off guard compared to something like Mantis, which is just, when I heard that song for the first time, I said, I have to learn every little nuance of this song in order to not look like an idiot, especially because I had just started working for the band. So it depends on the type of song. A song like Puppet String is probably different each time. Sometimes, or a song like Ocean Billy, the first time I ever heard it, I had a vision in my head. It was actually on Jam Cruise, and I still do the intro and the outro exactly the same. It was just, and Chris and I were talking about this earlier, sometimes when you hear a song, it just pops in your head. This is the only possible way to light this song correctly, you know, from my point of view. So I think it varies.
And to answer your question on my side, I have about 16 songs that are what we call Q stacked, where they're always the same every time because they're incredibly complicated songs and you could just never get it right. Ranging from Fluffhead, You Enjoy Myself, Punch You in the Eye. Try hitting all the changes to Punch You in the Eye on the fly, which I used to try to do. But a song like Steam and probably about 400 others in the catalog, they're never lit the same way, I guess. I mean, it's the same approach, the timing is the same, but it's kind of like Jeff was saying before about pages. With Fish, I don't have time to change pages in this board to find cues. It's all in front of me, all of it, so that I can just touch what I need to touch when I need to touch it. So it's really a matter of, for most Fish songs, it's a matter of feel. It's like, where am I going with this? I just kind of, it's different every time. Whereas the more complicated songs are structurally stacked because they just have to be in order to provide a nice product to the guys that are watching it.
Let's go ahead and take another question, and then maybe Chris, I'll have you go on the board and do a little example. Go ahead.
Hello. I do live video mixing alongside LDs and bands and stuff, and I find that not only when the video is synchronized with the music and moving with the music, but when the actual lighting effects are integrated in, because I use live camera too, to my video, I tend to get the best result. Do you guys have any desire to do any of the stuff with, especially the video mapping that they're doing nowadays?
Desire, yes, but unfortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, with fish, I mean, obviously I do other things, but with fish specifically, we have what we like to call a very purist attitude, light only. There's no video in fish. I've tried many times to get video. I've tried to convince them that I promise I can make video not look like video at all. Just give me the chance. But they're very, very purist about light. They just want light only. And you know, as much as I've wanted those things, personally, I have a true appreciation for that purist attitude of just light. So I'm probably not the right person to answer the question. Jeff?
I have a video background, so I feel like if I were to try to incorporate video into my light show, it would just absolutely drive me insane, because I do some video work now and I'll stay up for 12 hours editing, and a lot of the times I'll think to myself that because of the way my brain works and my perfectionism, that the good thing about doing lighting is that you only get one shot at it. It's live and in the moment, and if you screw up and then you move on because you have to. But with video editing, I'll sit there and I'll edit the same 1 second clip for 6 hours until I get it absolutely perfect. And so I feel like if I were to try to incorporate that into my light show, it would take so much planning and so much programming time. We're not at a level where I could go sit in a warehouse for several weeks, or, you know, it's really expensive to try to incorporate video, and I would want it to be absolutely perfect. It's not the kind of thing you can sort of do half-assed. So when I go into a venue that has video, I usually will choose to not use it, just because, again, I don't want to have to do anything that's not up to the level that, you know, because the light show I'm running, I've been working on for 8 years. I just keep adding to it. And it's impossible to walk into a venue and scrap something together in like 2 hours. You know, so I would love to at some point in my career integrate video, but it would have to be really amazing.
And I've seen some amazing shows with amazing video. People who do it right and integrate it right, like you're saying. It's like I was saying before about elegance. When it's done elegantly, it's always a matter of opinion. This is just my opinion. But when it's done elegantly, working with a light show, I mean, it's incredible. It can be the most beautiful thing ever. I'm sure you know, since you do that there are some people that it's just too in your face, and there are other people that you probably appreciate more where it's done in a very sort of well thought out, game plan sort of way. And usually those situations, to me, as somebody watching, I appreciate that kind of stuff a little more than your usual footage just pumping like crazy. When there's a game plan between lighting and video, obviously when those two folks are working together, or those two teams are working together, the products can be mind-blowing. I mean, you guys can make some amazing things happen, so I'm all for it. It's just not my world.
Okay, we'll take another question, and we'll keep the questions going for a little bit, because it seems like you guys have a lot of questions.
Another thing your bands have in common is that you each are known for putting on outstanding New Year's Eve and Halloween shows. Would you guys agree with that? I was wondering if you could talk about some of the special things that go into your side of it, preparation and stuff, and maybe how you've coordinated with the midnight stunts and some stories about that, you know, that kind of
Steam. Rehearsals, really. With Fish, you know, we all brainstorm about these things, and we hire some really talented people from outside of our camp to help us put these things together. I don't know if anybody in this room was we just did Madison Square Garden New Year's Eve. And we had people flying around all over the place on these winches, and some were going up while some were going down, and it was all very, very choreographed. And just the amount of rehearsal time that went into that was staggering. I mean, we probably rehearsed for 50 hours if you added it all together. Very technical, very precise. You know, a lot of work goes into that kind of stuff. We pride ourselves on those New Year's Eve moments. You know, we really want them to be special for everybody. As a matter of fact, before we did this last one, Trey pulled me aside and said, look, this is gonna be great. You need to make sure that every single person in this room sees it properly. Basically putting the pressure on me to light it correctly and bright and all that stuff. So, you know, it's really important to those guys, these moments, these Halloweens, these New Year's. So we, you know, we just try to do the very best that we can to present what the vision is. You know, at those moments, we just try to give it to you the best that we can and really make it as special as we possibly can. We want, you know, every New Year's, every Halloween, every special festival that we do, we want everybody to walk away at the end going, wow, that was something I will remember for the rest of my life. That's our goal.
For me, you know, Humphreys is obviously at a much different level as far as venue size, so we play different venues night to night. So sometimes we're in a venue this size, sometimes we're in a little bar, sometimes we're in, you know, a 4,000 seat theater or whatever. So Chris is basically using the same size rig, you know, if they're in amphitheaters or in arenas night to night. But for me, when we do, you know, there's a few shows a year where we get to really, you know, increase our budget because it's a big show, Halloween, summer camp, New Year's. And so it's a luxury for me to be able to sort of double the size of our light rig. And it feels great because, I mean, the more lights you have, the more grand your vision is. You know, and it's not any harder. I mean, the programming takes longer, but you're still hitting the same buttons that I was hitting in my bedroom 10 years ago, and just more lights are moving. So for me, it's great to see my vision sort of, you know, amplified like that. And then as far as preparing, Humphreys has this tradition of doing mashups on Halloween, and it's really challenging. I'm sure it's challenging for them, but as far as what I do, it's really challenging because these aren't cover songs that we grew up hearing. They're, you know, unique compositions where, for those of you that don't know, you know, a mashup, what a DJ does, the band performs them live, and there might be, you know, a verse from one song and then a chorus from a different song, and they're jumping all over the place. So you have to sort of memorize it. You can't rely on, oh, I've heard this song my whole life, and it's sort of in my, you know, my brain somewhere floating around. So for me, that's challenging, and I've tried to come up with literal translations, taking one half of the light rig, making it one color, one style, and the other half completely different. I don't know if anyone ever notices that kind of thing, but I try to interpret it literally to say, okay, half the band is playing this song while the other half of the band is playing this song, so I'm going to light half the stage one way and half the stage another way. So that's always fun.
Hi there. Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Seth, for putting on an intriguing workshop here. I'm Captain Toast, real quick, and I'm the Director of Operations, but also the fund for Jam Cruise, and that's why we're here. And I thank you guys for being here, and I'm also, you know, dealing a lot with visuals, and so I want to openly pose the thing. Have you seen these light guns that have projectors in them? You know, kind of an integrated machine. And my other thing is, what could you guys do to help take Jam Cruise lighting and visuals to another level?
Oh, well, okay. First, to answer the first question, yes, I've seen the fixtures that are projectors and lights, and they're really cool, and they've come a long way. They're not quite there yet for my expectations, but when they are, it's an amazing concept. You can do amazing things. It's basically moving video. You know, it's a moving light with video that you can throw your content in and put anywhere you want. And amazingly enough, you don't have to shoot video at a screen so people can see it. If I took a moving light that played video and pointed it right at your face and put a bunch of smoke in there, what you would see. You wouldn't see the video, but the kind of beam that comes out and the kind of, it's a very stuttery, stroby, I mean, it's really cool looking. So, you know, I personally, you know, if the day ever comes that I can get a bunch of those, I don't know if I would use them as video, but I would use the video as an effect, as an aerial effect, to get some really crazy looking beamage going in the room, that kind of stuff.
I feel like you used to
trippy, you know. So.
You used to do something years ago, an old picture that you don't use anymore. I don't remember what it was, but I always thought it looked like video. I think you did it in the Jam and Free, where you had some go-go's sort of stuttering, and it looked like the flicker of a film projector. Do you remember what I'm talking about? It was when they go to like the flat 7 in 3. Flat 7?
The flat 7. Okay, I think I know.
Okay. What was the other question? Oh, how we can make Jam Cruise's visuals better? I mean, it's
just
all...
get us involved early. The more we get us involved early, the pre-planning stages, what lights to use, where they should go, just, you know, I always feel that way. Any festival that I do, any event that I do, the earlier I'm involved, the earlier Jeff could be involved, you know, at least our ideas of how to ramp things up would go into play. I'm not saying that
I think what
good
they're asking for is
ideas,
to,
but we try our best to like make, you know what I mean, we do the best we could to make it better. I'm not saying it would be better, but we'd certainly try real hard. So
Toast, I think we got special guests for the site inspection this year. Okay, we're going to take one more question, and actually what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pick one or two of you all up here and actually give you a little bit of a lesson so you can actually learn up here on stage and on the board. And then we're going to end, so you all know, with a nice demonstration of how it all comes together. So, Amy, we got another question out here?
And one last thing before this last question. I'm here. Anybody wants to talk, hang out, chat lights, or on a boat, we're all stuck together, I would be more than happy to hang out with everybody, talk about whatever you want, answer all your questions. If you want to come, I'm on the pool deck and you want to play with the light board up there, great. If the timing's right, I'm all about it. So, please do.
All right.
Me as well, by the way. As long as it's not during our set. Any other time.
So you guys love whatever it's right there. Oh, no, what's that?
Well, I just could probably say for all LDs that are in this room that Chris, thank you. You have pretty much inspired me to be a lighting designer as well, and you're definitely somebody that I don't think if someone with the vision at your time with this music, I definitely wouldn't have been a lighting guy.
I said that as well.
My one question is for both of you guys. I've had some pretty epic emotional experiences with both bands on the same level, and I guess I want to know from both of you, what was that most emotional moment through your career for you guys?
It's hard to pinpoint. A lot of times with me, it happens in the more dramatic songs, Divisions, Haji, Glory. You know what, it was, for Humphreys, it was probably the first time that the choir joined the band for Glory on New Year's Eve at the Auditorium Theater. I think it was '08. That was one of the single greatest moments of my life, both as a fan and just in any category. And I didn't feel like I was working. I didn't even feel like I was attached to it. I felt like I was, I mean, in some ways, I think I enjoyed it more because I was working. And people always use the analogy of, you know, heavenness, and it was a religious experience, but it literally was a religious experience. It was a gospel choir singing. And I was so new to Humphreys, I didn't know that their song was Glory. I thought it was the instrumental breakdown in the middle of Amazing Grace. I literally didn't know that that was our song. And I think that innocence sort of led to it because I was interpreting it sort of for the first time. I don't even think I had lit that song yet. But luckily it's in 4/4 and it's really, you know, simple. It's more about the power of the emotion. And I think that for me personally, like all the you know, big rock and roll moments with the strobing and all that, that's, to me, I'm concentrating on finding the one and making sure I release it. With a more emotive song, there's no mystery. I know exactly where the band's going most of the time, and it's more just about the power of that big moment. And I had tears in my eyes, and even when I watch the video now, it moves me.
I've had tears in my eyes a lot with Fish as well. That's a good point. For me, it was, I'm a big New York sports fan. I mean, a lot of people know that about me. But the first time we ever played Madison Square Garden was a big, huge emotional moment for me. I believe it was 1994, something like that. And, you know, I don't really get nervous when I do my job. It just never happened. But I was really nervous that night. Something about being in Madison Square Garden, world's most famous arena, yada, yada, all that stuff. So I don't know I don't know how the stars aligned that night, so to speak, but I just had, you know, that night, everything was perfect. I didn't miss a hit, a change, everything was just right on the money, and I literally walked away from the light board that night, just like you described. Tears in my eyes, just so relieved. I put all this pressure on myself, so relieved and so happy for what I had done, but really, I was relieved and happy for my 4 best friends playing the music that they had the night that they had in Madison Square Garden for the first time. It was just it almost felt like a family moment, you know what I mean? And that was it for me, as far as that question goes.
So we're a little tight on time, so let's go ahead and does anyone want to learn how to use a board? Yeah, okay, how about...
Redbird, are you up there? Can we play that Fish clip? That's literally how I run 90% of Fish. Hit the button 5 seconds, watch it play, it lands on 1. I don't know how I really do it, but it works.
You have a 10-second
works.
You have to do variable times?
I've done that in the past, yeah. It's the same concept, 5, 5, 5. Yeah.
So let's grab someone from the audience here. Let's go ahead and gentleman here in the white hat, come on up here, and both guys can show you a little different bits about the board and educate you all, and then we got one more thing we'll do, and that will be the lit up.
You ever read a lighting cue before? Yeah. You're going to write a lighting cue. Oh, you have? Oh. This is Jeff.
In this set, the 4 sets, and this one moves, and then this one delay doesn't move, and then that one does move, and then that one does move, kind of overlapping each other. Can you show me how to do that, and then maybe put a lighting cue where you put like a color change?
I could show you how to do that, but we're talking about 45 minutes to an hour of program in order to accomplish that.
So you could show me how to make the move and like stagger the, you know what I'm saying?
Well, there's.
Yeah, he's just saying it's really time consuming.
Yeah.
And the parameters of the.
I mean, if you go, I'll tell you what. If you really want me to show you how to do it, come on up to the pool deck later. We'll sit down for an hour. I'll dial you right in.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
These guys
Is there
great.
someone out here who's never touched a light board in their whole life? You've never touched a light board in your whole life? You want to write a lighting cue? Come on up. Come on down. Come on over.
It's such an honor to be standing next to you. Amazing. Like, you are the...
Thank you so much. Okay, here's what we're going to do, okay? You are going to write a lighting cue, all right? So these lights, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are these tiles right here, okay? They're there because we put them there. Like I was saying before, you can put anything anywhere. So we put them there. So you are going to, go ahead, touch that till it lights up blue. Touch it again. There you go. And you're going to move that light with these two dials. Tilt, right, so it's the one behind you. These lights tilt and they pan, right? So take that light and put it wherever you want. You can look at it, turn the knobs, and put it wherever makes you happy.
How you doing?
Okay. Now take the next one. And you just tap it.
Now put on your shades.
Move that one wherever you want. That's that one right there. Okay, next one. Put it wherever you want. This is what we do for thousands of hours. Go ahead. Great. Go ahead, next one. And the next one. Okay, if you're happy with that, what you've done is you've just created a position, or we call them a pan and tilt. You've created a position. These lights are now in position. So now you're going to save this position by hitting this button labeled Store. Just tap it once. See how it lights up? And tap any tile to store it to that tile. There you go. There's your position. So now, if I take all these lights and move them wherever, every time you push your position, we'll push again. There you go. There will go exactly where you have them, right? So just to make it quick, we're going to make another position. I'm just going to randomly move them, and they'll say that's our next new position. Go ahead and push that store button again. You're going to store that position to a different tile. There you go, done. Okay, now it's going to get fun. So now I'm clearing these out. Hang on, let me turn off all, whatever. Okay, so now you're writing a song, and you say, okay, for this part of this song, I want these lights to be in my position 1, right? And I want them to be any color. You choose a color. You want them to be green. Okay. So now you've got that. You're going to hit Store. And over here, you're going to create what we call a cue stack. So say there, okay, there's your first part of your thing. You're going to say, okay, in this next part of the song, I want them to go to my second position, and I want them to be a different color. Go ahead and choose a different color. You're going to store again in the same place right on top of the one you just made, right? That's it, right? I believe it is. You're going to create a second cue. Got that? Okay. Now I'm going to clear all this stuff out. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this on this screen. And you're going to decide how long you want it to take to go from the first one that you made to the second one that you made. How about 5 seconds? All right. So this is fade, this is all time stuff, and it's a little deep, so we're going to say 5. We're going to say first one, 5. And now you've written the first 2 cues of the song. So now, it's going to take 5 seconds to go to your green, right? And now when you're ready, hit this button. You're the lighting guy, and it's time to go. Push it once. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. new color, new position, and you just wrote 2 lighting cues.